All right, good morning. Thank you.
No.
No, what do you want? You want to switch it over here?
Thank you.
You want. You could raise the volume a little bit.
We're going to go ahead and you need to mute. Get people on here, so go ahead and open this. Just, huh? Okay, good. Thank you. All right. We have people online too? Just one. Okay, very good. All right. Go ahead and get started since we are running and recording now. Good morning, Brian O'Connor, manager of the town, and thank you for attending today's workshop. We do a vendor training on a quarterly basis, and this is your opportunity to educate yourself on the process of how to do business with the town, but I also speak in reference to government procurement in itself also. So I'll get a crossover, and I'd like to kind of give a little bit of background. Your name is Joanne? And what kind of business are you in? Uniform or like sports or corporate, medical? Okay, very good. And software. So software in regard to any particular type of software? Or?
Pretty much any type, but predominantly I work right now with partner corporations with they do laboratory and quality control.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. Okay. Environmental agencies, testing the water, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. And online, if we could put it on unmute them for a second, let's ask them what kind of line of business are they in? You got them open? Huh? Okay. For those that are online, if you could unmute yourself, we can just want to get a little bit of information on my audience and who I'm speaking to. No? Okay. All right, so we have 1 minute follow. So I can bounce with that, work with that right now. So again, I like to focus in so I can give you some examples of real life, as we go through some things. So some of the things we're going to go over today is just some simple things as far as our thresholds, some of our procurement methods, how we do some notifications, a little bit about our website. We have a local preference here at the Town of Davie. We'll discuss that. Some common things that we run into, some blunders, also contracting methodologies and just our fundamentals. Yeah. Okay. So Gary, I'll go ahead and jump it. That's fine. Blue. So I have the folks online. Oh. Gary, this one's not working actually because it's actually, hold on a second.
I'll tell you how you do.
I'm back one. All right. So do I have the folks online unmuted? Okay. Here, back and forth on this. All right, so we have all of these departments that we serve. So basically, we're an internal service for the town that we handle basically from Band-Aids to buildings, everything in between for all of these departments. When it comes to all of the procurement needs through the town, it comes across our desk one way or another. Okay, and we'll get into how some of those processes work. But we have some thresholds and how those touch points come to us at certain levels. But these are the departments that we service and we handle for all of the town's activities when it comes to procurement, contracting, anything of that nature. Okay, so again, we have plenty of methods of how we actually go out and source those. So when it comes to actually going through, we have, if you see at the top of our webpage here, we have a we're using a new software called OpenGov. Are you familiar with OpenGov? OpenGov is actually a procurement software that is utilized by other governmental agencies. It's a form of getting bid notifications out. So if you're in uniform, if you're not signed up to this, it's signed up, you can sign up for free. Okay? There's no cost for you to sign up. It gives you a way of getting a notification when we advertise this information that's out in your area. So like when we're looking at, like, for example, Gary, or if any of my other team members are going out and sourcing, they're going to do like a Google kind of search for commodities that you sign up for. And they're going to get uniforms. They're going to be uniforms, and they're going to click that, and it's going to be sending everybody that signed up at OpenGov for uniforms or clothing or apparel or software or anything of that nature. They're going to send a notification through this system. This system is going to notify you, and you're going to go click on the link that it sends you, and it will open up the information, and it will provide you all of the specifications, everything you need to basically respond to a bid. Everything is now is done on. So again, the days of paper application, things of that nature are pretty much non-existent. So we do have some other features. Again, we have we are no longer using our town website for this. So on the right-hand side, basically, the notify me feature really is not something relevant that we're utilizing anymore, but we need to update our slide a little bit. But if you look at the top link, which is circled and with the red arrow, that is actually where you would go and you'd register for the town's OpenGov site. So again, here's OpenGov. Talk about this again.
What was the link again?
What's that?
That's how you get to the OpenGov.
So you can go to the town's website at davie-fl.gov. Right there, and it's /411.
I made a change to the, I made a change.
Okay, so again, we have what is OpenGov? Again, I just kind of explained that to you. It allows for strategic purchasing for us to be able to utilize this process. Again, utilizing this system makes it a one-stop shop for us. All of the questions you ask through it, you're going to be sending all addendums. So are you familiar with the process when it comes to competitive bidding with procurement, when it was governmental entity? You've been through the process before? No, you've never. So how do you obtain your solicitation now, or how would you think to find that? So that's why you're here today, is what you're stepping into to learn how to actually do it?
Never before, or just.
Great. Okay, so OpenGov is one method, all right? So that, I'm telling you now, other municipalities, I'll take my Davie hat off and I'll talk to you about basically a larger audience for government. There are other solicitation engines out there, okay? One of the most prevalent and somewhat disappearing because of some of the features they've not provided is DemandStar. DemandStar, and that's demandstar.com. Okay, just write it down for yourself. That's another one. It's free to use, but there are other ones called BidNet. Okay, bidnet.com. There is also OpenGov. There's some of the other ones out there. Ion Wave. So there's a few solicitation engines out there, but we use OpenGov here at town. That's becoming one of the most prevalent ones used by agencies. We all kind of go through a change. A lot of people use DemandStar. We like to keep it free. Some of them cost you. Some of them basically charge you membership, stuff like that. Ours is free. You don't have to register. You have to register, but again, you get this stuff for free for downloading or anything like that. It's no cost to you.
You know, that we free and it's their own versus I have their own state is the option.
Oh, GSA is another method, but again, GSA process is very lengthy and it's probably, okay, there's two parts. And software for GSA is good, but it's one of the allowable uses under GSA for our types of contracts. But it's an expensive and it's a lengthy process. So, okay. All right. Very good. And that's why it's expensive, because you have to navigate through that process. For you on notified as far as we'll get into utilizing a government contract. But when you go through this process, the thing he's talking about, if we have feedback, we'll get into that. Utilize other governmental agency contracts. So if you get awarded a contract later on down the line, we can utilize that contract as our own. And we'll discuss that a little bit further. But again, going through, register on OpenGov, you subscribe, like as I described here, you can get updates on how to basically, when you register, you go through the process, follow existing solicitations and questions. Like I said, when you're reading the documentation, important to go through that documentation, read it, understand it. If, we're laymen to some of this stuff. Say that some of the aspects our departments are either writing specifications when it comes to an RFP or a bid. Sometimes they get it wrong. And you as a subject matter expert, what's that?
Almost always.
Well, a lot of times, so it gives you the opportunity to basically ask questions. So we have what's called an RFI. And an RFI period, you can ask questions. So you can submit those to us and we can answer. So if it's unclear, something that basically, if we've got a blend wrong or a uniform or something like that, something you're looking at, you're going, is that really the application you want to use, 100% cotton or something that, in Florida, maybe not, or wool, or something of that nature. They might have it wrong. It could be a specification issue that doesn't match up or line up. You can get clarity for that. And what we'll do is we'll take your question, we'll answer it, and then we'll submit it back out to everybody so that they'll see the question that you may have been thinking it and didn't have that, written down yet, or you might not have thought about it and, oh, wow. And that actually changes the solicitation and becomes part of this. So when we go to contract, we look at all of the addendums too. So that becomes part of the real answer. Okay, so that part becomes part of this. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So we do have on our website another piece called Supplier Central. This is the fun stuff of procurement. Again, this is all of the great areas that we have for information. These two young ladies over here basically help me on that part, making sure that we update all of our information when it comes to when we have things like today, again, trainings. We have a survey that's out there. Anytime we're doing updates or our requirements form, again, all of this good, fun information to read and to go through, like terms and conditions. But it's important to understand our procurement code and also like our terms and conditions and things of that nature. Again, all of our stuff is available. If you're going through a process and you want to look at something on our terms and conditions, you go there and basically pull up our town standard terms and conditions and also our policies and procedures and our code. That's how we are mandated to. So one thing that we advise you to do, this is important, build yourself this toolkit. Go through this and have this prepared when you are getting into the government. Have not stepped into bidding yet, doing these types of things, don't pay attention. Because you want to go through this process. Sometimes a bid will be very simple. You're like, I need 10 polyester shirts, or could be something like this, type of shirt, or could be Kiana, we have, yeah, with the jackets, we have shirts like that. We buy apparel, like that, just the same for our administrative staff. We also have uniforms for our police department, fire department, things of that nature. So sometimes it's very descriptive, but we've asked that, this is a suggestion that we put out there. We're building a toolkit. Do your best. Okay, because a lot of times we don't ask for a lot of this, but sometimes it's good to put in there because, again, you're taking that initiative. We're looking for most responsive, responsible. People have the stigma of, oh, it's always low bid. Not true. Low bid doesn't always result in the best. Town looks at the value. You come in, you basically price out an item. Very underpriced. We're going to look at it and say, this doesn't match market. Why? Something's off. We get like a shirt that's something of that nature that typically is a $20 to $20 shirt, with all the embroidery, and it comes in at $5.45. Something's off, right? It's going to be one wash, and it's basically in the, in threads, basically the bottom of the wash. We know that's going to be the case. So we're not going to be buying those types of things. We're going to go look at that value. Look at what are you using. So some of the things that going through this, we want to also evaluate. We want to look at your, company's profile, your history. So give us your contact information. It's great to have. Sometimes we don't ask for it, but if you put it in there, you're putting your best foot forward. You're showing, hey, I've taken the time to give us this extra information. We don't have to search this stuff out. Sometimes it's easier. If we don't have that, trying to get a hold of you and get that information, and we can't get you to call back if we don't have a phone number or a contact information or anything like that. We're going to keep on. We're going to make the assumption that if we don't have this person's information, we can't get it from you. This doesn't make sense. We're moving on to the next step. That's not always the case, but I can tell you that it's, we've had those situations. Put yourself together a nice boilerplate transmittal letter. Just tell us about basically some of the projects or anything that you've been doing. Who's authorized to sign? Just give us an overview of your company. Go through, look at your org chart. It may be very low. It might be on just the president when it runs the company. But just give us who are the key players. Give us your staff's resumes if they have anything, your level of expertise, your licenses, or if you have basically certifications, all the types of things that you have that show you're a professional in what you do. Certificates of insurance are key. A lot of the times, that's one of the biggest hangups that we get into. We ask for certificates of insurance forever. And insurance is important. You got to be you got to be an insurance. You have to have insurance levels, and they have to be up to the level of what we're asking. Simple things like your W-9, put that together. Anything that you have. We're most of the time we're at $1 million coverage. We have, sometimes it could be more, very few times less that will accept. But we have some exceptions, but again, they're on a case by case basis. And, we have to go through a risk to do any kind of evaluation to say that we're going to take anything less.
You need both, right? The general and the two types.
Well, it depends. Not everybody needs professional life. In your case, that is the type of thing. Sometimes it's even software, protection, or there could be other requirements. So we have to check side of participation that when you go through there, we actually tell you what kind of. But just as sometimes it's just your general liability, your workman's comp, and your automotive are getting you into the gate kind of thing like that. And that basically lets us, why automotive? Well, if you're coming on site, it's one of those things that we want to make sure you have automotive. W-9, again, your form, that's a pretty standard thing that's gonna be asked for, so have that readily available. Again, your equipment list, it might not be so relevant for a computer, type of thing like that, but do you have screen printing machines? Do you farm everything out? Basically do all that. You know, for you, it would be a little bit different because do you do embroidery or you screen print or you do? Okay. When you're putting your stuff together, shoot some pictures, put a little nice brochure together. This is what the kind of operation I'm running. Are you just having a singer sewing machine basically sitting there? And that's what you're working with, or are you working with, some state of the art stuff? With, an operation and basically show that volume. Again, that's why, you gotta do some of that marketing for yourself, because again, we wanna know that if we send you an order of 200 shirts, are you gonna be able to support that? Just be shy of us coming to see your shop, and that might be something we do down the line, say, how than likely, that some people may get to that point, even in government. They want to know that you can support a large order. Because again, the last thing in your industry is I send out soccer uniforms to you, and these kids are waiting for their soccer uniforms, and they're doing sports, and next thing I know, you can't handle the order. It's disappointing to our constituents if they don't get that work. What is that? Exactly. And you have my pressure for that to keep up with sports seasons and things like that when it comes to those things. So again, we understand that, but our Parks and Rec people sweat that the most. And who are they calling? They're calling Gary. They're calling, where's my stuff? Where's this happening? So he's going to be on the phone to you going, can you handle this? That's why we look at the most responsible vendor. We don't look at somebody with a sewing machine and a big spool of material that's going to go ahead and sew these out, each one. Not going to happen. It's like I talked about the landscaping guy that basically bids this, a project that we have 37 square miles of town. We have, that's large. It's a large municipality. We put out landscaping and we look at equipment. We looked at how many vehicles you have, how many employees you have. We do not want somebody that basically is on a startup that has basically a truck, a trailer, and 3 goats, okay? To do all of our right of ways. We do not want somebody that basically is cutting their teeth on learning how to do this. We may have smaller jobs for them to do, but we are not going to hand out all of our parts or all of our to somebody that is just learning this. It's going to be, we got to have standards when we're doing this and safety. You can't be out in the middle of a median with people traveling across the town and have them not safe and be able to cause accidents. So again, we have to make sure that all of your standards meet what we're looking for. Client references. If you go through and basically you have a client, let them know you're bidding on a job. Give them a heads up. We know you're going to send us people, right? We hope. But a lot of times we call and nobody ever responds back. Nobody gives, hey, listen, it's important, but if we don't hear back, then it's kind of like crickets. Okay, maybe they don't, not maybe you're one of your best clients. So again, silence is not always the best when it comes to those things. Subcontractor information, and again, any of your licenses, your certifications, if you have prime, if you're the prime, or if you have subs or anything like that, really wouldn't apply to you guys too much in the room here. But again, your licensure, your certifications, definitely one of those things. I know you got like A++ and all that other stuff. I don't know, I probably have data as far as, I'm not an IT guy. They don't even let me touch the computer too much, so. Okay, so we have a registration process. Once we don't register anybody into our plan. So we've actually going to do business. Well, once we're going to do business with you, you got to get paid something, right? So it's either through a P card, which is credit card transaction. For us, we call it a P card because it has control. Basically, some of our departments, can purchase IT equipment. Some others can't, we try to protect the, people from themselves. They're doing those things that show up in the newspaper. Our cards have control. They're not regular standard credit cards. They do have some controls on them. So if they basically get rejected, it may not be the fact that the town doesn't have money. It's more the fact that they have a block on their card for a certain type of transaction. So that's why they're called P cards that are basically credit cards. Okay. But we have another method. We have basically what's called payment works. And payment works is a process where we actually have you registered through a third party. That third party goes through and does a full verification of your banking to make sure you're a legitimate business, that you are who you say you are. And it protects you as a business as well. So that basically nobody's going in and, contacting the agency and saying, hey, change my information, and we're sending checks to somebody else, sending your ACH payment to somebody else. You've read in the paper, you've seen other governmental agencies have been subject to missed payments because of ACH. I don't know if you've read that or anything like that. Some of the construction projects that's gone out there. We pay by ACH as well, which is a great process because obviously you're getting paid, you're not getting a credit card fee, but there's risk involved. And that's where payment works comes in for us. It protects you from that ACH. It doesn't let anybody hack into their system. It goes through, it has a very secure method of way to go through the process, checks and balances that are in place, and they do all that verification before you finally get your ACH payment. So nobody's tapped into your system or our system. It's not even the fact that they're even hacking the town system, they're hacking your systems. And they're going in and pulling your vendor information off your computers and sending it to government agencies with your document, like your vendor registration forms, and sending it in with new numbers that have their bank account. So this basically takes that away. That has happened. That's real. It's one of the things that's occurring more and more. Not typically in your type of business, construction is really where it's happening. They're looking at those big checks. They're looking at the big pays for those types of things where they're seeing that. So when we're doing multiple $1-million projects, they're looking at those payouts saying, there's a couple $100,000 that's going out as a check. They're going to be trying to capture that and reroute that payment. But we use this for everybody that basically comes in and registers for the town. That way we know it's secure and we know you can update. You also put your insurance information and some things on there. So some of the things that we don't get when we're going through this and kind of bottleneck the process is basically that certificate of insurance. People forget to put it on there. Laura over there, put your hand up, Laura. Laura is the one that basically does all of our payment. She has to go through and make sure that everything is in place before we put it into our registration process. We bring it over to the town. So some of the things that she runs into, certificates of insurance aren't there, SunBiz isn't provided. So everybody's registered with SunBiz, is doing business. You've gone through that process with the state. And again, bank verification. Getting your bank to basically verify that you are doing business with them. And that's one of the bottlenecks that we run into. So we can't even start doing business with you until we get you to go through this process. So again, insurance, some of the things, again, general liability, automobile, workers' comp, I touched on those. Again, having the town as additionally insured. We ask for that to make sure. Again, certificate holder. These are some of the things that we run into that aren't also on there. Now, we give you clues on these, and we also put these on the registration process so that you can actually provide this to your insurance company to say, hey, please get my certificate to say these things. And sometimes they still don't have it. So again, if it's not correct, Laura does not push the go button and you don't become a vendor until this stuff gets updated. And then you get a couple calls from Laura. If you want to call her just to say hi, call her and say hi. But don't bottleneck your basically part of that. So again, some of the things that basically, you haven't gone through, you haven't updated. So all we're asking for is basically a screen print or at least making it a PDF so that we can go through and again, have your information. Sometimes we have like ABC pressure watching there. Sometimes there's multiple ABC pressure watching. This kind of dials it in for us, a little bit better for us to find you, know who you are. We can match your information to basically the state registration. If you're in the state of Florida, you're doing business here, we're going to verify that you actually registered with the state. Okay. Bank verification. Again, Payment Works will call the business and basically, any phone number, go through that process, go through that verification process. Again, if we can't get there, we can move it forward, but there is, depending on the risk, we will basically evaluate that. But again, we want to be bank verified. That means that basically, we want to know that we're paying the right person and it's secured. So if not, again, make sure your bank is up to date and getting the right information to at least know that you are. I would hope so if you're running a business, but sometimes stranger things have happened. Anything to add to that, Laura? Are you running?
No, other than the bank is going to call a phone number that is publicly tied to your company. So it can't be a cell phone, it can't be, I know a lot of people work remotely now, that's been a problem. But they will call that publicly listed phone number, or if not, somebody at the company can verify or make the information that you submitted to the universe, she's fine.
Okay. So, again, some of the things when you're going through this documentation, there's a lot of information to intake. There's terms and conditions, there's the specifications, there's special conditions. Make sure you go through and read it. Go through that. I know it sounds elementary, but it's one of these things that you are entering into a contract with us. And you really need to pay attention to some of these things. Fill out all the forms, go through. Now, with OpenGov, great with that is some of the things you're going to get basically, it's automated. IT, computer, we love it. It's great. You can't pass certain things or you can't move on from certain things now. So some of the stuff we have to update on our own, a little bit more outdated. But some of the form you have to fill out. You got to make sure it's completed, notarized. If it's not done, again, it slows the process down. Ultimately, you could wind up throwing yourself out of the process if you don't comply with this. Not saying you will. There are some things that are complete things that will get you thrown out. We'll talk about that. We have some minor irregularities and we have some major irregularities. Minors can turn into majors for us. And I mean that because it may be something minor, like, hey, we didn't get your insurance, if we didn't get this information, we didn't get an update on something, and you don't get back to us. I've instructed my team on a couple occasions, listen, we're not getting responses. What does that mean? Where does that start? So now you're not responding, you're not up to date with it. What is that going to tell us how you're going to perform as a vendor down the line? It's kind of that, if I have to chase this person around to basically get this information now, just in the beginning process of beginning our contract venture with you, what is that going to look like as a relationship for the next 4 years? Not going to be fun, right? So that first impressions really makes a difference. Be responsive to this stuff. Make sure you're responsible when you're filling this stuff out. Fill out all the forms, sign the forms, especially the bid form. If you don't sign a bid form, you're done. That basically is your commitment to that document. That's like signing on the dotted line saying, I'm committing to doing this. If you're not, we're going to validate you at that point and you're not considered. No going back. It's not you're half in, you're half out. You don't sign it, you're done. Be consistent, okay? Use correct name of agency and spell it correct. I know it sounds very trivial, but again, when you're filling out a proposal or you're going through filling out documentation, use the correct name of the agency Make sure your spelling, grammar, all those things are really, again, it comes down to is, are you really putting your best foot forward? If you're not, you're kind of you're halfway in, right? So we're not the city of Davie, we're the town of Davie. We're not, and we've seen inside documentation with basically city of Plantation inside of our proposals to the town of Davie. We've seen other things from other agencies. It's a find and replace thing where they're going in and they didn't get all of them. Someone's not. All they're doing is just doing the find and replace and they're regurgitating information back to another agency. That basically doesn't send a good message. It may be legitimate, but take your time, whoever's putting the package together, and have somebody prove it. Make sure you go through and look at the math, okay? Believe me, math is one of those things that you would think, like, I want to make sure I'm getting paid or I'm charging you the right amount. We've seen math errors all the time, all the time. Hopefully, again, with calculations and things that are done on the computer. But again, you put a math error in, or you put in a calculation error or a wrong price, that's a basic no going back. All right, put your prices in, verify the information you put into the system, make sure it's correct. Go back through it, have somebody else look at it. If you need to double check, if you're not one of those guys, if you're a high level guy and you do all this up here, don't be doing this up here. Okay, know you're basically, where you're at when it comes to, because myself, I'm a high level person. I'm not into the nitty gritty details, but one of those things, I look at things on a bigger picture. I make sure that when I need to do those nitty gritty things, I get other people involved to really kind of deal in that. Know that about yourself or know who's doing that. Because again, if that doesn't translate across here, then you could have a problem because when we get to basically the details of something and it's inaccurate, we're going to come back and say, there's no second chance. But you want another vendor to have a second chance at that opportunity and basically pass you by. No, so we're going to basically eliminate you from that process. Know your competition. How would you know your competition? How would you know that? Just throw it out.
So the bids, you also see the other bidders, right?
Yes.
Their information and how much they bid, right?
Not during a process, but after the process, basically, or once we open the solicitation, we have a thing called open sunshine. All right, so it's public records law under chapter 119. He's right. You can request, you can look on our website for all tabulations, or you can look at other municipalities' websites. A lot of times contract availability of what the market is paying for certain types of things. You can go and look at other, like for example, City of Fort Lauderdale probably has a uniform contract out there that you could probably look at to see what they're selling to that governmental agency. You can ask, one of the things in the question, you're asking for the process, what is your former contract with them? It could have been 4 years ago. Market prices have changed obviously drastically in the last 4 years. But this is what we've been paying up to a certain point. Now, I say that market prices changed, okay? It did. Over the last 4 years, we've seen an incredible change because of just supply and issues and things like that. But we've made adjustments to contracts. We've made what's called equitable adjustments. We've made those types of things. So you may have to ask that agency to say, what are you currently paying for this? What are your contract prices? Give me the last copies of your contracts so that I can see that. You can ask for that so you can do a comparative. You may find that, man, I can beat that pricing all day long on Sunday twice, right? Or you can look at it and go, I don't know where they're getting their margins at. This is crazy. And then it might not be the space for you, or it might not be that opportunity for you. You may have to retool, might have to think about that. What are they doing that I'm not doing? How am I basically getting there? Might make you think about that. So again, it could be two different ways of looking at it. Like I said, it may be This is awesome. I know I can do better than this. I know I can beat this all day long. So again, that's great. Make sure you can follow this, going through that you don't screw up somewhere else in that process. Because
This would be part of the audit, right? Where you can ask this question?
yeah, yes, yep. And if they don't give it to you, basically then go back to their town clerk, go back, again, if it's not, yeah, because again, we're legally required to give it to you unless there's an exemption, okay? And IT, again, unfortunately, you're in a world now where it is a little bit more difficult for you to find an information because technology, with subversive types of people that are out there that are doing things with software, technology is more protected than it's ever been before with all of the ransomware and things of that nature. You are in a much more tighter space when it comes to what's available for you to know about. Unfortunately, trade secrets, things of that nature that really come in. You're not so much. It's more of that kind of stuff is open and available, and you can get that information. You haven't much stuff. Instruction sometimes with plans, but again, that's irrelevant to this conversation today. Again, check with your listed references. I told you about that before. Again, make sure you know bonds. You two probably will not run into this situation when it comes to bonds. Bonding is more construction related. The folks online, I don't know. I didn't hear what you were doing, so I'm sorry, I can't help. But on the addenda side of things, when it comes to addendas, that's that R5 period when you're asking those questions and we're giving you those answers. We want you to acknowledge it. We want you to respond when you submit that says, I read that addenda, I understand that addenda, and I know that is now part. You can't come back and claim ignorance on this and say, oh, I didn't know this changed. I didn't know this happened. Basically, that will possibly get you thrown out of the process. And I say that's kind of one of those ones that we look at to see how material that change was. If it's something that go read section 1.5, that basically is in the solicitation already, and all it's doing is just pointing you back at something, that's probably going to be allowable for us, kind of Davie. Not always the government. Some agencies are very hard line on it and say, I don't see that as that is basically something that would be, in my eyes, basically irrelevant and a disservice to you and us. We look at it, if it's something that is a new update, that is a specification change, that definitely changes, you're going to come back and say, I didn't see that. Now my pricing has changed. That doesn't give you the opportunity. And you're basically not going to be in an argument with us about, well, that's going to cost me more. 9 out of 10 times, it's going to be both aggravation for both of us. So no, we're not going to accept that. And we're going to go through that process of just eliminating you if you didn't check your addenda. Everybody understand that? Clear? Okay. Double check everything before we say package it, before you press send now, because again, go through and know yourself. You're that guy that is detailed. You go through and check it with a fine tooth comb. Fine. Be the one to go double check it. All right. But if not, get somebody else to take a look. You double check this for me. It'll save me. Terms and conditions are some of the things that we have, are terms that we have. Kind of we speak our own language. I'm sure in the uniform industry, I know for IT, there's a whole different language. You have a whole different, you talk about acronyms. We know how to do acronyms like nobody else does. We are great with acronyms and forms. That's one of the things procurements like the two famous things. You have a form for almost everything you could possibly think of. But some of the things that we have are local preference. What is local preference? Local preference basically, the council here had determined several years back, and I think that going through it, I'm going to be biased about this because I actually pay the town. And basically, I think that legitimately, this local preference is probably one of the most fairest processes I've heard. Okay, and I've been in procurement for a very long time, and I've seen local preferences where if you were within a certain percentage, they would just award to you. And that does nothing but disrupt the better community, because it's like, why am I basically? If you're in these margins, if you're in local Davie or 5%, or within Broward County, 2.5% of the lowest bidder, okay? And they are not in that category, or they are in that category, you're gonna have a second fight back. You're gonna have a second opportunity to go in and present a, what we call a battle. You're gonna get a letter from one of our teams that's gonna say, you fit into the category of local preference, you're within the margin, you have an opportunity to provide a price at least 1% lower than the lowest bid. Now, that's an opportunity. It doesn't mean you have to do it. Your margins may be very, very down. You've done your best, you sharpen your pencil. You can't do it. You can't do it. It doesn't mean you're also going to be, basically, there's other factors that come into play that we're going to evaluate. That you could wind up being in first place, okay? Depending on where you've been. Come back and say, hey, you know what? Had a little bit of meat here, I could probably trim down and come back, lower that price. You could be putting yourself in first place position. But again, it's not to do that. You're only in first.
Well, we need in which position if we did a certain percentage under most bidders.
You'd be second place. If you're in second place based on what you submitted, you have that second time. You have that second. You would be basically, if you're in first place and you're a local or you're in that category, be there. You wouldn't be providing a second. It depends on who's right here behind.
We actually don't know either.
Yeah, we'll tell you that too. We'll tell you the price. But not like you're blindly shooting at it. Piggyback. So we talked about piggybacking a little bit. Or piggybacking, we have, it's a very term that is evolving. It's a very crude term that we've used in the last 30, 40 years of experiment, turning into alternate source contract, turning into other different things, the name of it. But it all serves the same purpose. It means that basically if the city of Fort Lauderdale has put out a solicitation for uniforms, and we use your estimate for that. And basically, we need those uniforms, soccer, same style, might be a different color, might be blue instead, but it's the same shirt. If it's a jersey type shirt, it's the same everything, except for like I said, color variation change. We're not gonna change the style, it's gonna be a different number of shirt, like that. And you can offer us exactly the same pricing, terms and conditions, and we're gonna accept that. We can utilize it, have going through as a bid process. Kind of a point shoot and say, hey, let's go ahead and order this pricing based on those terms and conditions. We're gonna ask you for either to put it in place as a term contract that we want to order on an as-needed basis, so that we can keep continuously ordering those. Deliberation. So Fort Lauderdale has a 4-year agreement, and it's 2 1-year renewals. We're going to make it a 4-year agreement, starting on the date that they entered into it, ending on the date that they entered it. We're going to use the same terms, time, and conditions. So basically, we can take that and make it the Town of Davie's contract. It's the same and utilize that in order as we need. Or it may be just a one and done. Might be like, we just need to order, 50 different shirts. We might just ask you a quote, but again, in accordance with the terms and conditions of that contract. It could be 2 ways. It could be episodic, or we could be putting you on a contract for those types of things on a long-term basis. I prefer everything we do on a long-term contract or term. I'd like to term those contracts as long as possible so that we have an opportunity to be able to have the departments go ahead and order as they need based on that. So when you're pricing those things, they're gonna be asking you for quotes. You're gonna be putting on your quote sheets. It's in accordance with the terms and conditions of those contracts, but you're gonna be providing a price. You understand that? Key stuff, software, we actually utilize, there's a couple of ways that they go through it. Much more complex because again, software as a service, different types of things. OpenGov is a perfect example. OpenGov is something that we bought through what's called Omnia. Omnia Partners is a cooperative, large, massive cooperative. They have, I don't know if you're familiar with Terrasoft. Familiar with Terrasoft? Terrasoft is what's called a reseller, or they are a third-party integrator, they call it. They have ones that are called integrators too, so they have these fancy names for these things. We can buy through them through a competitive contract, and I don't have to go out for an RFP.
Already have an approved vendor essentially. So you try.
Correct. It's gone through a competitive process, gone competitive pricing. I have established contract that I have already rules of engagement, all those types of things that are already established. I have to go through that regular lengthy procurement process. Now, if I didn't have that, I would be going through what we would call probably an RFP or an RFQ, typically in your area. Again, we look at either qualification based, are you qualified to do this? We're going to negotiate it. And then also with vendor stuff and a lot of software, ITNs, invitation to negotiate, is another term highly used in the industry when it comes to IT stuff. Because that basically is a lot of the stuff we're doing with IT is negotiation. Because again, they're providing solutions on things and it's very customized, it's very niche to basically those types of things. Like you stated, some of the things that you're talking about when it comes to laboratory software and stuff like that, that's very niche stuff that really comes into play. So you have, again, different opportunities. You're competing in a different arena where you're selling service like commodities, and stuff like that. You're selling more in service field and more in intellectual technology type of stuff. A little bit outside of two different niche spaces that you have. Cooperatives. I talked about Omnia Partners, Storagewell are a lot of large, what they call cooperatives, meaning that they solicit these. State of Minnesota as a cooperative, they go out and source a lot of the same things that we all buy in state government. So the state actually, we all buy tractors, we all buy soccer fields, we all buy goals. Things that you go to any hometown USA, you're gonna find these things. Fire, whatever you want. A lot of that stuff we buy in common. Go out and source this stuff on a large scale, and we're able to buy those based through what we call cooperative. We have pricing, terms, conditions, and everything already set in place. What's the difference between a piggyback and basically that? Cooperative takes into consideration all of those agencies that we're going to be buying. Piggybacking is really just the Town of Davie doing this for ourselves. And basically somebody else from another agency can say, hey, by the way, do you have a contract for that? We don't take that into consideration for doing that. They just want to basically use our contract to copy it and use it for themselves. So it's really, we just consider ourselves, we don't really know that Miramar, I'm going to use it. You never take that into consideration. When the cooperatives are looking at it, they take into consideration their members and they look at volume pricing from that aspect. They look at you as a vendor saying, you should take that into consideration as well, that you're going to have X amount of agencies that are going to be able to utilize it without going through all those hoops, putting out a competitive bid, doing that process. Understand? Questions?
Getting back to one local The other one is more of a partnership contract that is awarded on one side, all the extent.
And there's a lot of things, and again, you got the gist. There's a cooperative, again, they kind of cross over a lot of times, but like Southeast Florida, we have 52 agencies that are part of the Southeast Florida co-op, or local tri-county co-op, smaller across the tri-county. We do a lot of that. Today, as a matter of fact, we have training of Coconut Creek. We have a lot of our agencies that do a lot of training together or cooperative meeting. We put our minds together. We put a lot of that stuff together and do that on a regional base. But again, it's not just localized to one municipality. So we do some, it doesn't have to be nationwide, but it can be just a larger scale. Okay, so we take into those considerations. Back on here. So again, I talked about a little bit about this economic best value. Again, equitable, what's fair and equitable. We look at, transparency. These types of things, again, are what we pride ourselves on from the standpoint of making sure that we are looking at this, not buying that, have a sinker sewing machine. That it might be okay for, one item, very custom item, doing that, it may be specific to that. But that's not going to work for us. Not going to work for soccer, police uniform, people that need their clothes, fire department. Those are kind of things like that we run into. We get trainings, and this is one of the things that like we get the newbies who do fire guys. And they usually hire 5 or 6 at a time. And that's the biggest thing with we provide T-shirts, film shorts, and things like that, so that when they go out and do their physical training in the morning and stuff like that, they gotta have clothes, so they're all kind of, our union contracts stipulate that says we provide this. So again, we're in violation of our uniform code of our union contract that says we're not providing this because the vendor's not doing it. So, those are some of those issues that we run up against. We don't have clothing for them, or the right gear for them, or anything like that, that they don't have proper gear. That's another issue for us. So again, we gotta have it. We just need their uniform. Not like they can go out in a T-shirt and shorts and say, what's that do for the week or so? They actually need uniforms. Again, what's fair, what's equitable. Talked about that, as far as fair and equitable. I want to make sure that you're getting treated exactly the same as the next vendor. We're going to line you up. You don't want to have, you run into a situation where you feel like you're being not fairly treated. There is a process inside the solicitation. When I tell you, read through this stuff, there is a protest policy in our solicitations. You feel that you've been mistreated, there's something, you have due process to go through. There should be that in any solicitation that you run up against. If you are, whatever reason, basically, it seems unfair to you, you have the first step to basically go through that process. Now, I can tell you, be careful with that, because there are some things out there, sour grapes are not a reason for protest. That is definitely not something to say, I'm the better guy, I can do this, I'm better than them. That's not where protest comes into play. If there's a legitimate reason why, that basically something's been violated. I showed you on our webpage, we have our policy procedure manual. We have our code on. You can read those. If we violated our policies and procedures, we violated our code, then yes, there's a reason to basically protest. But if I'm inside my policies and procedures, and I'm inside my code, and I follow those steps inside my contract, what I'm saying I'm doing, you don't have a reason to protest. Don't just throw that out. You have something that basically blatant, that you were disregarded, whatever reason, I have the capabilities of doing this. I have the lowest price. What is, you have a process. Okay? So again, we want to make sure what we're doing is fair. We have a process in place. So go through that, no matter what your contract, what agency. Okay, from basically any local government to the federal. That is the worst thing that procurement person, that stigma, those types of issues. I take personally because I don't think that basically, one bad apple. Talk about, these things that basically the top people say that's not fair. It's a good old boy network, all that kind of stuff. Today, in this professional field, that should not be occurring. And, when our peers do that, if there are folks that are out there, I take that very seriously. Again, and so transparency is one of the things that, again, we make sure that our batteries don't run low. Getting close, that's my alarm that I'm talking to. I know that you guys want to have those for staff meetings that I have low battery. Transparent. That open go. We put on there all of our documentation, all the way down to when it's approved. We also record, as you can see, we have a recording mechanism, all of our meetings. Okay, we do that so that when we do a review committee, unless it's stated by that 119, that chapter 119, if there's presentations or anything that are closed door, we make them available after we record it. So we video record everything and make it available. So all of our processes are open and transparent. Either you can be in the room, or you can basically view it through a web video, or you can actually see a report. So again, and all of that is posted on our website with the solicitation. So again, you're there, you can see it, you can see what's happening. We do it for several reasons. We do it for the transparency of you looking to make sure that it's fair, you're not being mistreated or anything of that nature. Or the fact is that if you missed a note, you're sitting in a pre-bid. So if you're going through, you can go back and get the information so that you have it correct. That's why we want to make sure we're giving you those tools as well.
Get a copy of the recording.
You can get a copy of the recording. Sure. Absolutely. So again, this is our general information as far as our German website, anything from there. Any questions?
Yeah, in a nutshell, the process is that you have to register on a bid.
Okay.
Then essentially we wait to get contacted by the team, by the town. That
Right, as far as you'll get notifications through that system that basically, that we have any solicitations that are in process. There's also one method I didn't mention is basically, some of our departments have the ability to spend $5,000. Use software, not software, they're not going to get that. But, something under, they can get a quote and basically go to one vendor. Okay, so if it's something that they're doing unique, hard to just say they want 50 t-shirts, 50 is going to be still close. The same with 50 t-shirts or whatever, 50 shirts or something like that. They can go out and have that done with a quote, a single quote. They don't have to have a contract. They can just get a quote from you and process that and move forward. We're obviously not trying to, go through and, scrutinize it. We want to make sure that we provide decent pricing. We don't want to have, $8 t-shirts or anything like that. But I'm just saying that, we leave it to the departments, their discretion under $5,000 for a lot of those things. So if we have a contract and we see that they're doing that, we're going to advise them, hey, did you do a comparative against that contract? Make sure that we want to try to use our contracts that we have in place. We don't like them going outside of those. But we do not have exclusivity to any contract. Yeah. The only ones we have exclusivity to are the sole source ones, or most of the time in his arena, not quite anywhere else outside of the sole source on that stuff when it comes to linkage with types of computers, unless it's got an integration. So a lot of times of that nature, you can just probably close it down. we chose that. But, again, it's really the preference of the agency. If you're targeting certain agencies, and if you don't see how you're getting it, all their procurement divisions say, what are you utilizing? How am I getting those bids? You know, start to do some research on your own, because it's all over the place sometimes.
I'm working, for example, with the parades,
Where?
Emerald Pines,
Right, Mark Gomez.
farm, Rob.
Mhm.
So like direct to parking operations. So they do the full uniform for the regulation program.
Right.
Just send it to them like a company. Some information.
Right, because it depends on, again, I'm surprised with Pembroke Pines, because Pembroke Pines,
It's straight to
I thought Pembroke Pines was using bonfire.
the baseball regulation program.
How much do they spend?
Like 25.
Under 25,000? Yeah. Again, they may have that, their threshold may be different to where they basically allow for one quote and moving in that direction. We have a very low one quote threshold. But again, we're spending taxpayers' dollars, so we want to make sure, you know, sometimes, and that's a preference of the agency. Sometimes they let the departments spend up to that, you know, they'll let them go out and get 3 quotes. They'll let the departments do that. We don't allow them to do that. Why? Because we want to make sure that it's apples to apples of what we're asking for. Sometimes departments are, you know, talking to you over the phone saying, I need an XL shirt with basically maybe Port Authority, all right? But, they might talk to somebody else and say, well, you know what, maybe I want Nike. And they're not comparing true apples to apples and what they're doing. So that's, you know, and they're not procurement folks. They just want to get their stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact is, it, you know, it's doing you a disservice, because then again, so we look at, remember those 3 points I showed you, fair and equitable, kind of right there. We want to make sure what we're doing. 5,000 is very low. You know, $5,000, you can spend $5,000 on snap it, you know, fingers basically at this point. But we keep that so that our process, when my team is going and making sure that those things are, you're treated fairly as a vendor. You know, and that's what we want to make sure that we're telling you and your competitors exactly the same, so that you have a fair opportunity to do that. You know, if you're not getting prices on those things, and you basically are saying, hey, let me just give you a little tip. If you basically don't get something, and somebody's asking you for an order, or someone's asking you for a quote, and they have 3 quote requirement, ask for those 3 quotes. Ask for those 3 quotes. Look, you know, after the bid's closed and everything, if you didn't get it, just do a test, find out, look at what they got. Is it comparable? Is it exactly that? You know, because you may find that wasn't the situation, and that's not fair to you, right? It should be exactly the same, unless it says or equal. All right, one of those things that goes or equal, but is it really or equal? You know, I mean, do you really have that or equal? Like I said, you stick it in the washing machine, the next day it's red. It is not, that's not equal, right? There's certain standards in your industry. You definitely have quality issues when it comes to those types of things. One shirt is not the same as those others. You know, software, a little bit different. Again, you have radio that you have pretty set standards in some of those types of things, whereas, you know, Gildan, Port Authority, Under Armour, all those types of things like that. Each one of those are different. You price those on a different scale for how you're doing that. So again, if they're switching that up on you, you should look at that to say, you know, I could have sold you Gildan at that price if I knew that was the case. So again, you should really kind of be looking at that. You have the right to do that under that public record. Just a little bit of guidance on that. So if they're saying, hey, just give me a price on this. Find out what their quote requirements are. And if they have 3 quotes for that, and they're requiring a department to do that, you should be asking for them. and see if it's lining up. Because you might be surprised that it's not. I'm just saying, I'm not making any accusations, but I've seen that from other agencies. I've seen where departments have done that, and that's why we don't ask it. We don't, like, they go out and put a fence, you know, and say, okay, I want to put a fence around this area. Well, the vendor's gonna write down what they think is needed. They're gonna basically say, this type of galvanized, this type of pole, this type of whatever. It may be subpar, and one guy's going, man, I'm gonna give them the best fence that they're really gonna have, a fence that's gonna last for years. It's gonna be safe for the kids, this guy's thinking a different frame set, and he overpriced it. The other guy's coming in, give them the cheapest price on this shit, and it fall apart in basically like a year. It happens. I'm telling you, that is why my team makes sure that we're on the same level, same gauge, everything's the same when we're doing that. We might get still that cheap fence because our public works guys are basically writing specifications, but we're everybody going to provide the same standard. So just make sure you're getting the same standard when people, somebody's asking you to do something. Do it for yourself. Because a one quote thing can't help it. You know, one of those things that's really kind of, it is what it is. But if they're competing and they're in an outside department, just be careful with that. That's my word of wisdom for today on that one. Everything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, so, we just heard a little open down, you guys will contact. We had the information from the audit team in there,
Yeah.
So we essentially, started the bidding process, meaning that we applied for the bid. And then, is there any kind of, process of validation that happens at that point, or?
Yes.
The validation is throughout the RFI.
So throughout the RFI process, when you go through the RFI, then we have an opening. So we, like RFPs, we won't go through and announce the price. We won't be out there like saying, company X is basically $50,000, but we'll just read who responds. And then we'll go through an evaluation process with the evaluation committee. There's public meetings, sometimes there's closed door meetings, depending if you're providing a presentation. We're going to keep those closed. We don't want your competitor sitting in the room in the back of the room. Shooting up basically his, hey, I can do better than that. Just kind of making his better. We have those closed. We record them to make them available after the process. But an evaluation committee, we're evaluating it. That is a public meeting. That actually, again, and we record them here at Town of Davie. We make them available online. So basically you can sit in the comfort of your office or home or wherever you're actually watching that, or if you're on, your phone or whatever, you can watch that process. Yeah, those are available for basically that process. In a bid, we're sending that to the department to do an analysis or review. And basically what we're doing is saying, look at those quality control, look at those specs, make sure that they're accurate. Everything's apples to apples. We're doing that comparative. We're also making sure that you provide all that documentation, that you went through all that stuff. We're doing that administrative review to go through and make sure your certificates of insurance are there. We're going
So Procurement essentially you validate everything about the company, but the actual task is specific to the department that they have to check. Right?
And again, right, they're the experts at what they're looking at as far as that goes. We're also giving it a second glance. We're not the subject matter expert in that area. We have enough to basically kind of sniff out if there's something there, but we absolutely have to rely on the department for that standard. But that standard has been set, so they should be following that standard. And again, if I'm seeing something that is a price that is, like we talk about $5.95 versus what should be a $25 shirt, and they're going, yeah, we're going to take that $5 shirt. We're going to say to them, let's get some more information. We're going to get that $5 shirt in here because they might be thinking, hey, that's cheap, that's great.
Yeah, you have the experience from other bids and other processes that kind of where they should land.
Yes. And again, sometimes we see this price basically go from like You know, I've seen projects run from $30,000 to $300,000. And I'm like, where is the problem? Something's wrong somewhere in this process. It's either A, vendors didn't read it, didn't understand. It depends on how linear that 300, that means. And we do that analysis. We do a review of that. If I see that it's 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, and then 250,000, something's a specification issue. Somewhere there's a disconnect. Where do we find this? You know? So again, those kind of things. And sometimes when we get one bid and we have 5 people looking at it, we may go back and ask, why didn't you submit it? Or there's a reason why. You can submit something and say, specifications were not clear. I am not bidding on it. You may let them know so that when they see the price that came in at a 1, they came in at like 4 times their expected cost because that person decided to throw a number out there and take a risk. Say, well, I'm going to go ahead and play this out and see where it goes. You may want to say, specifications were not clear. I didn't understand it. Let them know why. Again, you didn't do this. They may come back and go, wow, okay, somebody said this. Maybe we need to tune this up and clarify this before we spend this kind of money.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I mean, it's not the information is wrong, but there's a lot of points missing.
Right.
And for me as a company, I have risk that I have to mitigate. And sometimes I have to bump up the price just thinking that, you know, all of the issues that may come out from that gray area.
Right. So again, that's where they RFI if they're friend. And again, if you don't still feel comfortable at that point and you're like, I can't take this. No bid, put in the reason why to say the risk is too great. Risk is basically specifications are not clear. I don't have all the information I need to do this. And again, they might take that seriously enough to say, okay, and they might get your competitors doing the same thing. And that, well, like I said, one guy that comes in and says, I'm going to jack the price of it. I'll take that risk, but I'm going to hit it 4 times. And they don't know it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And one more question, if there's any kind of contracts for, let's say, long-term support, for instance, right? How long are these contracts?
that's all over the place. Okay, so when it comes to that, it depends on really what we look at, what is the standards, and I say that from, you know, we put escalators in them, we do all different types of things for IT support. IT support is, again, a different area, and those can range. Those can range in basically, we look at long-term contracting, or we look at sometimes a very short-term contracting. I hate to give you such a loose answer, but it's kind of a hard question to answer when, especially talking about what's like the software. You're really kind of that subject area. GIS is a little bit different than basically the run-of-the-mill regular software support.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, the government right now has, federal government has like 5 years contracts now.
They do 5 years and they have a renewable for 5 years if they choose to do that. A lot of times they do that.
Yeah.
And they make them open-ended, so they can renew them again in 5 years. So until they want to. So a lot of times they do that.
So I could just asking you like for it.
Sure, and it's the same. Most of the time we're in a contract for 3 years, 2 1-year renewal. That's for like commodity services and things like that. Software again could be variation, and we could be in those scenarios. And sometimes we get into evergreens. I mean, those types of things are very specialized. We renew on a year-to-year basis. You know, Microsoft and all that other stuff like that. We have, you know, long-term contracts with that kind of stuff as well. And then we always have termination for convenience. So we have a termination clause in there that, you know, by the end of the year, or depending on 1-year renewals. You know, so we'll have 1 year and then we'll be able to renew again automatically, or we can just with consent. So,
Yeah.
you know, consistency with software is important. When it comes to support, if we're not getting that support, then we're.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm asking this.
Yeah.
Wherever I work, it's like 50% of the agreement. It's directly the support after you provide this.
Right. Okay. Good. Any other questions? Thoughts?
again, you know, afterward, you have our email or information, you can send it to Procurement at davie-fl.gov. Available, Laura, as far as,
Oh, you have me on?
Yep,
Okay,
you're
good,
still on.
good. We didn't completely dump you. I'm sorry if you're still online.
No, the online guys are gone, but you're still recording.
What's that?
Everyone online is gone, but you're still
Oh,
recording.
okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. What would I do without Laura? She brought the plug and I did.
I told you I'd go get it.
Not serious. My bad. That was complete. I am.
participate on the programs, lobbying, everything.
For the recreation programs or anything of that nature,